right, today's lesson is going to be on conservation of mass, okay? In the past days, we've been learning about ionic and covalent bonding. Through bonding, we have learned how to make molecules, compounds, so we're going to take that into practice to learn about conservation of mass, okay? And this will kind of give us a segue into a topic on photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which is part of our required content in addition to this lesson, okay? So conservation of mass. Let's just start with two terms here. The two terms are reactants and products, okay? So I'm going to tell you what those two terms refer to in a little bit, but I want you to understand that the reactants have to equal the products for a chemical reaction, okay? So we're going to start, in order to understand these terms and to understand conservation of mass, we're going to start with the equation for photosynthesis, okay? So photosynthesis uses water plus carbon dioxide, that's two words, sorry, to make, with the help of sunlight, it helps to make foods for plants, specifically, in many cases, a sugar by the name of glucose. And oxygen is kind of like a byproduct of that making the food, okay? So these things, like all things, are made up of atoms, different elements combined to make molecules and compounds. For example, and write this exactly as I write it because we're going to be filling in some blanks here, okay? So, water, put the blank, is H2O, okay? Plus, put the blank, carbon dioxide is CO2. Sunlight is required to make this reaction occur. So when water and carbon dioxide are used by a plant during photosynthesis and sunlight is available, then the plants can produce sugar, C6H12O6 is the formula for glucose, plus, put a blank, oxygen, O2. Molecular oxygen is O2, okay? Now, this is the chemical equation for photosynthesis, but it's not balanced. Now, what I mean by that is that the reactants here on this side of the equation, so here's one side, on this side over here, this side of the arrow, we have the reactants, and over here on this side of the arrow are the products. So the reactants don't equal the products, because if we count up the total number of atoms of each element on the left side of the arrow and the right side of the arrow, they are not equal. Okay, I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, so let's start with carbon, okay? How many many carbon atoms are there right here? 1. Okay. How many are there over here? 6. So they're not equal. What can we put in front of this carbon dioxide to make it equal 6? 6, okay? So let me say something about this number. It's not the same as this subscript, because the subscript only applies to this atom of carbon. When we put the number in front of an entire molecule, it applies to all of the elements in that molecule. So this applies to the carbon and to the oxygen. Okay, just want you to know that. Liam, head up. Now on this side of the equation, how many hydrogens do we have? 2. Over here we have 12. So what number can I put in front of this to make this 12? 6. 6 times 2 is 12, so we're going to put a 6 here. Okay. Now we have 6 oxygens here, and we have 6 times 2 equals 12 over here. Is everybody watching me do this? Because if I say here and you're not looking at the screen, you're going to be lost. Again, we have 6 oxygens here, and we have 6 times 2 oxygens equals 12 on this carbon dioxide. So 12 and 6 is how many? 18. Over here we have 6 oxygens and we only have 2. So what can we put in front of this to make it equal 12, like this one, plus these 6 equals 18? So we put a 6 here. Okay, let's count them up and make sure we're good, okay? So we got 6 times 2 hydrogens is 12 hydrogens over here. We have 12 hydrogens over here. Over here we have 6 plus 6 times 2 equals 18 oxygens. Over here we have 6 plus 6 times 2 equals 12 plus those 6 equals 18 oxygens, right? Does that make sense? And then carbons, we have 6 carbons here and we have 6 carbons here, right? So now we have, now we have the same number of each element's atoms on each side, right? So now these two equations, we can say that they are balanced, that their reactants actually equal their products. Does that make sense? The only difference is that the atoms from the left side have been rearranged on the right side to form new products that are different than the reactants, right? So now, with that being balanced, we can say that we truly are showing conservation of mass. The mass on this side of the equation is the same as the mass on this side of the equation. We could never create or destroy anything in this equation, okay? No matter how many reactions the universe goes through, we're starting with the same amount of mass, we're ending with the same amount of mass. This is for the entire universe, okay? Understood? Now, if you want to get into Einstein's theory, then we probably could change that, because energy equals mc squared, which means that in a weird way that I can't really wrap my head around, energy equals matter. So we could potentially make energy into matter, okay? Maybe one time I'll take a really advanced physics class and figure that all out, but doubtful. All right, any questions so far? Okay, I'm just going to erase a little bit of this, just these things here, because I don't want that on my paper for now. And we're going to see another equation, which is related to this equation. And if you guys can figure out, using your analytical brains, how these two equations are related to each other, then you have mastered the challenge of the day, Are you ready? See if you're a master of the challenge. All right, the other equation we're looking at today is called cellular respiration. Who already knows how these two are related? Okay, for cellular respiration, we start with sugar because when we digest foods during cellular respiration, okay, thank you. When we digest food during cellular respiration, it turns into sugars and it goes into our bloodstream. Also, we breathe in oxygen through our nose and mouth, and that goes to our lungs, little tiny sacs in the lungs called alveoli, where it's exchanged with the blood and it goes to all of our cells. So you're getting sugar and oxygen to all the cells so that cellular respiration can occur. Now, during cellular respiration, a couple things are made. Water, whether you realize it or not, when we breathe out, water comes out of your mouth. If you're outside on a cold day, you can see that because little clouds of water vapor come out of your mouth, right? Or if you go breathe on the cold window over there, you could probably leave a little cloud of condensation on the window that you could put a happy face on. And then also we breathe out carbon dioxide. Can you raise your hand and wait? Now the whole purpose of this equation, the whole purpose of cellular respiration is to produce an energy-carrying molecule like ATP. So instead of putting energy in via the sun, during cellular respiration, we're putting energy out in the form of ATP, okay, adenosine triphosphate. So I don't need you to memorize all that stuff, but what I want you to understand is that there is a relationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Who has already mastered today's challenge and can tell me the relationship between the two equations? Brody.
So when plants make glucose, they also make oxygen that we need to breathe.
Okay, and what else do they make that we need?
They also make the sugar to also help in cellular respiration.
Right, so the sugar that they make is used for all kinds of things for plants. It's used to make all of their body parts, their stem, their roots, their leaves, their fruits, their seeds, everything. And it's also used to fight disease and whatever else they need to do, okay? So we take both of those things in from plants, or we can take them indirectly into our bodies by eating meat from animals that have eaten plants. But the whole thing here is that that sunshine that goes into cellular respiration and these other things are the whole basis of life on Earth. Okay? So when we mess with that balance, it's going to mess with us. Now, what I want you to do before we write the equation for cellular respiration using the chemical formulas is I would like to look at that relationship just a little closer, okay? So we're going to skip down, save this whole space here, and at the bottom, I just want you to write this. Whatever goes out of photosynthesis is going to go into cellular respiration. And whatever goes out of cellular respiration is going to go into photosynthesis. Because,
can you go down?
Yeah, the reactants, or rather the products of photosynthesis, the products which are sugar and oxygen that come out of photosynthesis are required for cellular respiration. And then what comes out of cellular respiration, which is the CO2 and the water, they're required for photosynthesis. So there's a cycle going on here. So I want you to understand something. Let's think about this for a minute. Since I was born many, many years ago, when I was in school, in high school already, I was reading about life. And I was really interested in what's, living things in the world. Especially, my focus was really interested in tropical rainforest, because I saw these beautiful forests that seemed to cover half of South America in the Amazon. And it just really, wow, it excited me, because I would read about adventures of people that went down to visit the Amazon, and I learned about what we called back then Indians that lived in the South American Amazon rainforest at the time, and I learned about all the animals and the plants that live there. And during my lifetime, you know what I've seen? I've seen half of the Amazon rainforest get destroyed for human expansion, for growth of cities, for farming, and for ranching. Do you think that those trees in the Amazon rainforest are producing more oxygen than the sugarcane fields that they plant there? The trees produce a lot more oxygen than any crop that we have ever planted. So what I want you to understand is that not only is global warming caused by us burning fossil fuels, but it's also being caused by us not producing as much oxygen, because we're cutting down so many trees for farming and ranching. So when we have less oxygen and we put in more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that traps heat in our atmosphere, is heating our earth and causing global warming. And we're seeing a lot of effects of this today. We've never seen wildfires like we have right now in California. There's always been wildfires, but not to the extent that we're having them these days, and many people believe that that's due to global warming. I lived down in Florida, in Miami for many years. One thing that I saw happen in Miami while I was living there is the sea level rise. They had to start pumping water out of South Beach in Miami because the water levels were coming up and were flooding that part of the city. And it continues to be a problem. Okay, there's evidence of global warming around the earth, okay? Think about all those polar bears that don't even have a place to stand anymore and are just wasting away. So we need to just think about our actions. And I'm just as guilty as anybody. I still do things that are wrong. I still buy coffee for myself. Coffee from Nicaragua, where rainforests were. Now there's coffee plantations, right? But I am careful. I am more careful than most people. So just try to be conservation minded. Think about, for example, I'm still using the same iPhone 7 that I've been using for the past 10 years. Why? Because it's unnecessary to have the very newest, best technology if I know that what I'm doing is destroying wildlife, taking away Native Americans' lands down in South America, taking away monkeys and carpinchos and snakes and all kinds of wonderful wildlife that has just as much of a right to live there as I have a right to live here, okay? So think about it before you go buy a new pair of shoes or a new outfit or go get your hair done or whatever it is that you do that is using energy, that is using materials, because all that energy and matter that we consume is taking away from other living things, okay? So when we finish our notes today, I don't want this to just end up in your notebook or in your binder. I want this paper to be a paper that you pin inside your locker or pin inside your bedroom or frame it and keep it or put it in a scrapbook and look at it every once in a while to remind yourselves and make yourself think, am I being greedy?
Oh. Oh, big man.
Am I being good to the planet? Okay, you guys all come to this school because we're an environmental magnet. You should be standing for something that's important to the entire planet. Because what it comes down to in the end is not just destroying other organisms' habitats, we're also destroying our own habitats. When I came into school this morning, it was like 5:45 a.m., and I smelled a terrible smell. I was like, what is that? Is that a factory nearby that smells so bad? What is that smell? And then I drive on the highway to get here because, well, I live out west, and I think, wow, remember I used to just walk to school because I lived so close to school, and then I had to switch schools. I mean, not really my fault, but what can we do to reduce our impact? We should be thinking about this daily. Okay, I want you to be that conscientious because, for one, if you show that to yourself, you're going to care more about yourself, you're going to care more about others, you're going to care more about things. And your life, if it doesn't have a purpose right now, you will begin to have a purpose on this planet because you know what you're doing is good for you and everything else here. Okay? All right, that's my soapbox for today. Let's go back to the formulas here. What is the formula for sugar? It's up above. Go find it. What's the formula? C6H12O6. 3 plus 6O2 plus 6H2O plus 6CO2. Again, reactants on the left, products on the right. Do they equal each other? If they do, the equation is balanced and you are showing conservation of mass. That means the mass of these reactants equal the mass of these products. Okay, any questions?